Good evening. I'd like to call meeting to order for the Midtown Redevelopment Area Board, Tuesday, January 8, 2013, 6 p.m. at City Hall Commission Chambers. Will you please do a roll call, please?
Ms. Benjamin? Here. Ms. Burnett? Here. Ms. McGee?
Here.
Ms. Cato? Mr. Tooley?
Here.
Ms. Hurd? Here. Mr. Williams?
Here.
Dr. Jameson?
Here.
Chairman Ivey?
Present. At this time, I would like for everyone to stand as we do our invocation, led by myself, and the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Ms. Hurd. Bow our heads, please. Father Heaven, we come this evening thanking you for this new year. Thank you for bringing this board through all the times and troubles and trials that we've dealt with. I ask that you continue to bind us close together. Give us the understanding, wisdom, and knowledge to move this board and our community forward. This prayer we ask in our Son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I hope that everyone had a chance to read over the past minutes from December 11th. If there are any changes at this time, would you please state it? If there aren't any changes, I would like a motion of approval, please.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that the minutes be accepted with the necessary corrections.
Second.
It's been motioned and second. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Mr. Bryan, are you going to handle the staff report? Dealing with the staff report, we had a chance to look at the ComStat report and code enforcement. There's a, excuse me for my voice, there's a sheet that Mr. Bryant laid on you from Captain Blanchett that addressed the last questions that was asked at the last Midtown board meeting. So if you do have any questions on dealing with the ComStat or any other issues at this time, I would ask that you pass it on to Captain Blanchett through Mr. Bryant. And if not, I'm going to move. Are there any questions or comments? I'm sorry. Dealing with the staff report at this time.
Not the staff report.
I do have, I'm sorry, Ms. Benjamin.
I have a question. The mobile home is parked up there at the corner of Orange Avenue and Martin Luther King. It is back up there again, and I thought that you all said it could not be parked at the car wash and service center.
Good evening, board.
Good evening.
You're talking about the one at Mr. Miles' station. I did get a call on that today, and I'm going to address that with him. Again, it's not supposed to be parked there, and I will address that with him.
Mr. Tooley.
Yep. My concern in the staff report is with code enforcement. First of all, we're getting stuff from Atlantic Avenue, which is not part of Midtown. And there are some things on here that I'm not sure why they were included. Because if it's an unfounded report, you shouldn't even have anything on it, should we?
Well, let me address that. This report was done by another officer. Mr. Lopez was on vacation, and he submitted this on his behalf. Normally, he would submit pictures to cover each item, but during the holiday season, he was out, and we needed to get a report, so that's why a part of the report is combined, but he will be back for next month and do the regular report as he has in the past. But this was done on his behalf, and it does who submitted a report for him, he does cover areas outside of Midtown. So this was the total report that he would have submitted. So that's why you got other items on there.
Okay.
Mr. Wilbur.
Williams. Can discuss code enforcement issues at this point. There's a beauty supply store that's on Orange Avenue that's right in that same plaza where the Church's Chicken is, and it's totally covered with posters, and the windows are totally covered with posters. And
Okay.
Any other comments, Ms. Hurd?
Yes, I have a question. When I have been asking about storefront churches popping up, I have been receiving answers that we have to be very careful how we deal with the question about churches, religion, and what is being done. So if that's the case, how are we going to curtail activities in the Midtown area? We don't want to be sued. They're having issues in Orlando concerning code enforcement and churches, groups meeting. So how are we going to handle that?
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what the violations are that code enforcement pursues. But basically, the First Amendment law, the way it relates to churches, means we can't single them out for special treatment. But if a residential person can't litter, neither can a church. If what we're trying to do is enact a code violation that would make assemblies illegal, maybe that's seen as targeting a church. That might not be doable, but I think what we're talking about is enforcing our existing code. And our existing code is pretty neutral as far as how we treat churches. If an assembly place, whether it's a church or a auditorium, has enough parking and enough size, it has a right to be there. So. But
do they supposed to come through code enforcement, a building permit, receive permission to open or use a building?
If what you're asking is, would a church need to get a city approval to begin using a building? Typically, yes. If the building hasn't been in use for a while, that's one of the circumstances under which our code requires a site plan review. But site plan review wouldn't give us, say, the right to say to a church, you can't be here if the church is a permitted use in that zone. Site plan would allow us to do things like see whether there's enough parking in accordance with the parking code, whether setbacks are met, are there any repairs that need to be made to the site or building in order to allow it to be used. I don't know if that really answers your question, Ms. Hurd, but it would. I think if I had more information on the specific kind of violation you were concerned with, I might be able to address it better.
I have a question.
I will get with you later on that. Thank you.
Yeah, okay.
Ben, I recall in one meeting where they said that we can't dictate to a landlord who he rent his building to.
Mm-hmm. Right. Typically, zoning ordinances, and when we look at site plan review or we look at design review, that's a kind of a zoning ordinance. They're concerned with the use, not the user. So the zoning code might be concerned about whether an ice cream parlor should be next to a sewage plant, but not whether I should be, owning a sewage plant at this location or an ice cream parlor. So just to oversimplify.
And just as a minister who opens storefront churches, according to the city ordinance, if I have a certificate of occupancy, then I'm allowed to hold service there.
Ms. Kato.
So outside of having the certificate of occupancy, when it comes to, as he stated, our attorney, when it comes to parking, because there's one issue where there's a building with no paved surface. It's just all grass. Then you have people that are living back abut to the residential property with grocery carts and tents. So now you have someone that's homeless sleeping behind this building that says one thing, but on the inside it's another. Then it opens up to where, because it's a church, and I just found this out last week, just standing around talking to people that want to sell and don't want to pull permits and don't want to be liable to the city for permits, they go to the churches, they make an agreement with the church. I'll give you part of my proceeds if you let me sell, because they now know that if they're on church property, that the city can't bother them because of the division of church and state. And it's not to hurt anybody, because I don't knock anybody trying to be an entrepreneur, but if I want to set up Bike Week and pull the permits and do everything that I have to do, why is it every weekend out of the year a said person can go sell produce, barbecue, or whatever on a church property and not have to deal? That's not fair to someone that's doing right. But like they say, that line between church and state, it's just, you know, we have to be how far we go. But what happens, people are just coming into Midtown, opening businesses, not that they have to bow down to it, but the right thing to do would be to come and present whatever it is they're trying to do, which goes back to the workshop. Land owners, property owners in Midtown should be held accountable for letting at least the city know, so that Charles and Reed can come to us and say, hey, there was a vacant building, they met the criteria, they pulled the permits, they have all their licensings, they're going to open here. But what I see month after month, and since I've been on this board, they come in, they talk with the property owner, he gives them a contract, verbal or written, and bam, they're open.
Just to follow up, let's assume that there's no additional facts that for some reason might make a difference in the code, that just because, you know, we don't know every word that's in the code, we didn't know to talk about tonight. But to sort of follow up on what we've been saying, the right to operate a church doesn't give the church as an owner the right to do something that's not church related.
Right.
So if our land development code authorizes some property owners during temporary periods to allow itinerant vending, any property owner who wants to take advantage of that has to comply with the same rules. And churches don't get a break from that because they're a church under our code. So maybe there's some misinformation going on, or maybe code enforcement's not aware of this particular violation, but a church as a permitted use would not carry with it the right to do, normally itinerant vending. Bear in mind, though, that often churches might have cookouts for their members on a Sunday after service. So that is part of a church use. If we're talking about a church during Biketoberfest allowing 8 different vendors to just set up shop, I think they've got to comply with the same rules that any other property owner has to in our itinerant vending provisions in the code.
This is every weekend in Midtown. We had one person that went from one side to this side, and now they're for one church because the land they were on didn't even belong to the church when it all boiled down to St. Timothy. So now they're on the side of the church facing the property that used to be Nick's liquor store. Then you have churches. Every Saturday they selling barbecue. And they say it's for the church. Or I go and make contact with Reverend Tooley at Mount Zion and say, listen, I want to sell baked goods every Saturday and I want to give your church a donation. This is facetious. And they say, okay, no problem. Just make sure you clean up and that it does not cause a problem with parking and people hanging out. Now, that's what I know for fact is going on. People are making bargains with churches to sell over the weekend. So if that's a person with a business where they're making profit, and that's straight up vending, but they're on church. But then you have a business owner who wants to let someone vend outside their shop where they have to come pull the permits and everything. It's the same thing. It's just two different properties.
If I can just sort of follow up again, a minute ago when we were talking about, as an example, multiple vendors, vending different stuff.
Every weekend.
That might be an issue, but churches do bake sales. And so and just to sort of, we zone the use, not the user. If a church was permitted to have a bake sale for its members, I don't think it would be the business of the code to prohibit a church from subcontracting out to a business to do it if the bake sale was for its members. So there's a lot of nuances here, and some of these facts we're just sort of talking about off the cuff. It might be a good idea to get somebody from code enforcement to come to a meeting, and then the board members could address some very specific questions to them. This stuff they eat and breathe all the time. One other thing I'll say, and this is kind of a defense of the code enforcement staff, although they don't work for our office, whether you're talking about vending on a particular property on one side of the street on one weekend and then on another side of the street the next weekend, or you're talking about somebody who puts up all kinds of banners for a weekend sale, or you're talking about some people setting up some tents on somebody's property. One thing that all of these things have in common, and let's assume that they're all violations of the code, that's different from, say, a building that's built right up to the sidewalk when it can't be. That building's going to be there tomorrow and the next week. And all these other examples, they're what we typically refer to as transient violations. And transient violations, by their nature, they're a lot more difficult to police effectively. No matter what kind of tools we're given under the statute, and no matter how good a job you think staff is doing, code enforcement typically requires a notice, and you got to fix it by then. And if it's not fixed, you go to code enforcement. If it is, you don't. That's the basic holdup. There's some ways around that, but once you're talking about transient violations, it becomes a lot more difficult to fix. Now, I think it would be better for code enforcement to tell you how they might handle some of these specific things than for me to tell you specifically. I just want to convey that to you in real general fashion, that some of the issues that you're talking about are difficult because they're transient in nature, because somebody can close it down after a day and move across the street, and because we have to cite the property owner, although we can cite the tenant as well. Those things become difficult. Doesn't mean you can't enforce it, just means they're more difficult to enforce in that building that's built over the setback and it's going to be there for the next 3 months. That's a much easier thing to take code enforcement action on.
Is it possible?
Wait just a minute.
So if Mr. Bryant owned a building and it was empty, and I was a minister, and I went to him and said, I want to rent your property to hold religious services, and we make our contract and he gets his financial gain and I go in and do everything. If the city comes to me and tells me that I don't have the certificate of occupancy, am I shut down, or can I just go and get the certificate of occupancy and stay in business?
Well, a certificate of occupancy is the last stage in a zoning review that might begin with, is this property even zoned correctly? It might begin with, okay, that's a permitted use in the zone, let's look at the site plan. I mean, there's all kinds of steps that have to happen, the last of which is the issuance of the certificate of occupancy. Now, the city might make mistakes, but typically, if somebody's issued a CO or a certificate of occupancy, all of that zoning review's been done.
Okay,
So-
which goes back to what we've been fighting for our prohibited uses, that things that we have enough of in Midtown, although we don't want them, but people still get to go and acquire permits to do them. Some people don't get permits, some people do. So what good does it do for us to set up a list of things that we don't want when we have to go back and face zoning?
Let's talk about that for a minute, just so, because a lot of what you do has to do with zoning, a lot of what you do doesn't have to do with zoning, and zoning can be pretty complicated. But one of the things you have to remember when you're talking about our zoning code and how it restricts people's use of property, These are restrictions on people's use of property. And in deference to constitutional property rights, we couldn't ordinarily adopt a zoning code that says we're not going to allow, let's not use churches because churches have we couldn't prohibit churches, I don't think, in the district. But we're not going to permit liquor stores in this district. Now, first of all, if it's a legitimate business, the city can't very easily just restrict legitimate businesses. But let's say that's not an issue. Let's say we adopt the city commission at next Wednesday's meeting is going to add to the prohibited use list in the Midtown area. If there's a liquor store open right now, that liquor store, that land use gets to continue on because they have a property right. Now, it's what's now called a legal nonconforming use. And if they cease using that property for a period of time, somebody can't come back in and restart it. But if I'm a landlord and I own property that's currently used as a liquor store and one tenant leaves and within a month I rent to another tenant, I've got the right to continue to do that. And that's the way the prohibited uses are limited. Now, sometimes with zoning codes, you can prohibit a use and it's a really obnoxious use. Let's say it's a bong shop. All they do is sell bongs. They're clearly, not usable for something legal. In some circumstances, you can prohibit a use and then say, any existing examples of that have to finish up and be gone, within so much time. But you can't typically do that with the business that it's legitimate. It's just not something you don't want in your area. You typically don't come up with what they call an amortization that says everybody's got to be gone in 2 years. So. But
isn't that what we just did a couple of months back for convenience stores in the Midtown area? Are those different circumstances?
I don't know the details of what the commission did when the commission, and I assume that the commission added convenience stores to the list of prohibited uses in Midtown.
Right.
But unless the commission also,
in
addition to saying these uses are prohibited, unless they adopted what they call an amortization schedule that said, and all of these uses have to be gone within 2 years of the date of this ordinance, then an existing convenience store, as long as it's complying with other code provisions, it's allowed to stay open. They can't rebuild it if the building gets torn down. They can't restart it if the use is vacant for 3 months. But if they continue to operate and they're open and doing business, they're gonna get to stay open for an indefinite period.
I'm just trying to figure out how is that different from what she was describing just a moment ago.
Well, I think in the scenario you were describing, it wasn't clear whether if Charles owned the building, it was vacant at the time I went to Charles and said, I want to start operating this church.
So.
Wait just a minute. Don't let it get out of hand. When Mr. Williams get through, Dr. Jameson had a question.
So then in all actuality, the city does have a right to decide that at some point we've got enough dog shampoo businesses in Midtown.
What we've been talking about is the consequence of the city adding a business to a prohibited use list in the zoning district. Sure. And that might be a separate animal. That was a pun. It wasn't intentional. But that might be a separate thing from saying we can only have 3 puppy shampoo parlors in Midtown. Limiting businesses because there's a lot of them in an area, that's sometimes okay and it's sometimes not okay, is all I can tell you. It depends on a lot of factors. But adding puppy shampoo parlors to the list of prohibited uses in Midtown, presumably the city can do that. The question then becomes what happens to the 4 or 5 that are operating, which is what we've really been focusing on for the last couple minutes. I don't think the city could lawfully put a moratorium on puppy shampoo parlors in particular, and that's not just because I love puppies. But compare that to a bong shop. I think the city could clearly say bong shops, have 2 years or something like that. So, yeah.
Dr. Jameson.
Because of the illegal.
Okay, we have thoroughly discussed 2 different problems here, so I'm kind of ready for the solution. In the first one, in terms of all of these churches allowing people to operate a business, would it be feasible, because
this may be, I can think of one or two churches, but it may be a lot of churches that don't know this. Would it be feasible just to draft a letter and simply say, in accordance with the city ordinance or whatever, that churches are not allowed to let private people operate their business because they're jeopardizing their nonprofit status, and just it's information, not threatening, not saying anything. Just they may not really know they're violating anything, but would it be feasible just to draft from code enforcement or where it is and say that churches, and there might be churches all over the city need to know this. It might be something put in a city brochure that they are not allowed to do A, B, and C. Would that just solve that problem? Just it may not solve the problem, but at least they would know that they are in violation and jeopardizing their profit situation. Okay, would that be feasible? Put it in city something or another, not on the web.
The city wouldn't regulate what a church is doing based on whether a church is going to retain its nonprofit status or not. Now, what code enforcement can do, first of all, is write a notice of violation if a property owner, including a church, or a tenant occupying the property, if the church is just a tenant, if they're violating the code, they can write a notice of violation. Sometimes I understand code enforcement staff write warning letters before notices of violation.
Well, just information. I don't want to say the word warning. Just let churches know. The same thing you did about the grass, that citizens are responsible for the grass, and that's another issue. For the grass, just let churches know that, in some way, for information only, that this may be a problem. Okay, and because I see a lot of people putting up barbecues on the weekend, and so that maybe they just don't know. The second issue, the building being used as a church. And if the church is required to have parking, there is no parking around, if I know which one you're talking about. There is no parking around there, so they're simply in violation, period. And that doesn't need a whole lot. Just say you're in violation if they are using it as a church and if a church is required to have parking.
Dr. Jameson, I think what ought to happen is that the board ought to have code enforcement out here to make sure that code enforcement understands the facts that you give them, and they're going to do a better job than I can, unless you give me a week or two to look through the code. They're going to do a better job than I can of saying, well, that would be a violation, and this is what we can do.
That would solve that problem. We beat the problem.
It's on him. Code enforcement went to that same place you were talking about.
It's on here.
Over there, 327 South Martin Luther King Boulevard.
And it was.
They have no permit, registration on file for church. So they've already been out there.
And what does that mean, though?
What's the name of that church?
But before
They give the number 327 South Martin Luther King, and it says completed.
Since
it says completed, that means that they made it correct.
wait a minute. But before we beat a dead horse, one of the things that we all need to look at as a board is if you think someone is in violation of code enforcement or whatever the case may be, one of the things you could do is simply pick up the phone
And talk.
and call code. If you feel that they're in violation, then that'll trigger code enforcement to do their job. And then, like we just responded here, they'll respond back to us in writing. So that might be the best way to sit back and deal with it, because, I mean, the captain just responded back to all our concerns from the last meeting. I'm sure we can continue to do the same things now. So if you think something is in code violation or someone is violating the code, just pick up the phone, call code, and let code deal with it. And now you started a track record. And then that's the best way, because it's hard to go through each individual law or code violation here at one point in time. So I think that's the best way to deal with it, and then code can answer your questions directly.
Mr. Chairman, you can also go online and report code violations. That's probably better than picking up the phone, because if you go online and you register a complaint, then they have a time frame that they're working within that they have to get an answer. I like that way better than picking up the phone, because you got a paper trail and they've got to report back to basically through the city manager's office on what the corrective action has been to correct that violation. So either, just let me know if there's a violation. I'm in contact with code enforcement. We work together, and as you can see, like the chair said, the police department and code enforcement, they work with us. I go back through the minutes and I take notes to find out what violations you have. I send a request like you have there to the police department, what is being done. I got to report back to the board based on the information that the questions that they asked last meeting. When I get back, I try to update you on the progress of what's being done. So that way it keeps me to when you put something in paper, I might not know whether you call in a violation or not, but if you put it on paper, more than likely I'll know that you did, someone put in a violation. That way I can follow up on it also.
Thank you, Charles.
You still got no questions?
Another thing that we can sit back and look at too, when it comes to addressing some of the issues that Mr. Williams brought up, and for the board concerns, that's one of the reasons why we commissioned this study from PMG, is to start addressing what we can and what we need and what we don't need in our community. So we let them finish this study. It'll give us a better guide also on implementing and continuing the prohibited use list. So that a lot of things are going to come out this study if we let them get through with it. And that'll address a lot of concerns also when we do that. That's the reason. One of the reasons why we having this study done is to give us the factual information in order to help us redevelop this community along with the master plan. So keep that in mind when you're sitting back looking at some of the things on why we're trying to address them, but we have to address them as we get the documentation to do it. Yes, ma'am.
May I ask the question, is it permissible for us to have a workshop with code enforcement rather than take up time here wondering what is going on?
I think right now, when we're dealing with code issues, one of the best things we do, I would prefer that each individual person sit down with it's either Hector or either Lopez, along with Mr. Bryant. You had that right to do that. And they can address most of the issues, because we are trying to address a lot of the code issues, grass in the streets. There's a lot of things we're trying to address right now that we are working on behind the scenes. But if you got other issues that you feel that aren't being addressed, please, I'm encouraging you to pick up the phone, ask for a meeting with Hector or either Mr. Lopez, and they'll get it addressed for you.
Mr. Sharon,
Yes.
you mentioned my little pet peeve, the grass in the street. In looking at that, that's not a code enforcement problem.
No, I have to agree with you. That's the issue that the streets, Public Works. So again, you had a right to call Public Works, but we are trying to address that right now also. And if you feel free to come, let the City Commission know also, or the CRA. You had that right also, but I know it's in the plans to when they come in and pay the streets and they're doing the surveys on a lot of this stuff now. With that, any other questions dealing with code?
May I ask
Sure.
another question of Charles? We had a cleanup schedule before and it was canceled. Are you thinking a little later on to reestablish that cleanup?
Charlie, actually, that with the health department, Suzanne Grubbs, they have one scheduled coming up. Yeah, this Saturday. Are you on the email list?
Yeah, but I don't check it that often.
Okay. Yeah, it's this Saturday because I did receive the email on it also.
In Midtown?
Uh-huh. Is it? It's the Tier T area? Okay. But that cleanup has been being conducted. The health department has really took the lead on working the cleanup areas right now because they're basically funding some of that through grants.
So that's not Midtown.
That's not Midtown.
No, I know it's not Midtown, but they are over on that part of the area. They are working on it in different sections at a time. But Suzanne Grubbs at the health department.
I'd just like to say something. When we
Right.
start talking about cleanups, the health department is out and trying to inspire the community toward doing cleanups. We did the last one we did with the health department. We cleaned up Midtown area. I particularly don't like cleanups because I think the wrong people are cleaning up. We need to educate people because they can sit there and watch you all day, and you go and clean up the area, and the next week they throw the paper out there again. If we're going to do cleanups, we need to get the areas that we're cleaning up, we need to get the people involved because they don't care if they're not having to get up on Saturday mornings to walk the streets and clean up, then they're going to continue to dirty it up. So we need education when we're dealing with cleanups that they want continue to trash the area, you know, and they would have respect for their own community and they would demand respect from others because people come outside where I live, people come in my area throwing trash. I'm out getting tag numbers and taking pictures of whoever throw the garbage out there. You know, because I mean, I try to keep my area clean, and I'm not the one that want to clean up every Saturday. So when we're talking about cleanups, we need to make sure we educate the people in that area that they need to be responsible for help keeping that area clean also.
Madam, Mr. Chairman, I want to distinguish between that kind of cleanup and the cleanup I think is needed on Orange Avenue and Martin Luther King. It's not that kind of cleanup. It's the citizens are responsible for the grass where there's a grassy area between the street and the sidewalk. That's not the grass I'm talking about. I'm talking about the grass in the street, okay? That's in the cracks in the street and in the cracks in the sidewalk. I tried to get it out the road in front of me. I can't do it. Okay, I tried to pull up, but that's in the street, and the citizens are not responsible for the street. That's what I'm referring to. Public Works should be looking at if they ride down Orange Avenue and Martin Luther King. It's not the grassy area that belongs to the resident. It's the street and the sidewalks that are old or poorly constructed or whatever it is that needs to be cleaned up, and I think that's Public Works' responsibility.
That part you are correct about, Dr. Jameson. Charles, let's make sure that we follow up with Mr. McLemore, especially on Martin Luther King. I know they're not going to do too much on Orange Avenue because they're getting ready to redo it, but Martin Luther King, that area we know. If there are any more questions, we'll move on to item number 7. And that's the election of the officer for this coming year, 2013. At this present time, what I would like to do is start with the election of the chair. On this particular board, you have the chair and a vice chair. We really don't use a secretary because we had the minutes recorded and it's being videotaped. So,
Mr. Chairman?
oh, well, I'm going to get to it. I'm moving to it. So, but I'm still chairing right now. Okay. But
We weren't privy to that if whatever went on over there.
We were stating that all positions were supposed
we
to be
don't-
vacated prior to election, but he said he's just going
I
through,
was going
telling
through
us
it,
what
and,
we're going to elect on.
Yeah, they jumped
Okay. Something mumbling over
Yeah.
there.
So, again, on this particular board, I hope you had a chance to look at the bylaws. Or they are outdated because we currently have 9 members on this board at this present time. So, on the Clarion, I know, Reed, can you address that for us?
Yeah,
please?
if I could just tell you right now, we pulled these up. They're old. They need to be updated, and it's one of those things. I think if we could, we'd like to bring back a updated set with your permission. We'll get right on that and bring you a draft of something that you can look at and approve.
Because at this time, too, I think it's in the new Clarion, too. It was being worked up.
Yeah,
with the
there
new-
are some recommended changes, and I don't know when that's going to come back to us. So I think
heard.
if we could just move on and get present
Okay.
we'll take out West Side, put in Midtown, and some of those other technical corrections, and remove the word secretary because we don't have that in any of the other boards.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll do that.
So if there aren't any other questions, I'd like a motion that all current seats are vacated and that we start the procedure to elect or re-elect officers for the year 2013.
I would like to make a motion that all of the elected officials for the year 2012 seats be vacated at the present time.
Second.
Unreadiness.
I mean, you got a question?
Okay.
Figured that.
If we do that, who's going to carry out the election?
But you,
If I can make a procedural suggestion, what we do with most boards is rather than move and vacate the panel, which brings up the exact issue we're talking about, just, nominate people for the chair and for the vice chair.
And then
And on
let
the
them-
election of the chair takes over and
Exactly.
people move their seats around, so.
that's normally
Mr. Chair?
how we do it also. So will you withdraw your motion?
Yeah.
Yes, I'll withdraw it.
Ma'am,
Thank you.
Have a
Rescind,
motion.
decline.
Dr. James.
I make a motion that if it's not broke, don't fix it, that we retain our present officers.
Well, you have to go one by one.
Go one
So
by
you have
You
to
have
go
to?
with the,
The
for
other,
the record.
Yeah.
the other problem, Dr. Jameson, and this isn't to take anything away from Chairman Ivy, the Land Development Code says that no member shall serve more than 2 consecutive terms as chair.
You've served two?
No, I'm sorry.
He's
Okay,
only one.
I didn't know, just wanted to
Yeah.
make sure we all had that, and
Well,
this might be my first time on the board,
I
so.
No.
I take my motion back and I make a motion that Mr. Ivory remains chair.
A second.
Are there any other motion?
I move that we receive the one said name with a unanimous consent.
Let's do that.
You heard a motion and been second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Well, I'm going to take this time to thank this board for having confidence in me to lead them for another year. Thank you. Our vice chair,
Well, I don't know about that.
may I have a motion?
I move that Ms. Hurd be made vice chair for another year. Pat Hurd
Pat
as
Hurd.
vice president.
I'd like to make a motion that I'd like to nominate Thule for the vice chair.
Let me back up a minute. Then if she made a motion, does it have to be second first?
It has to be seconded.
You heard a motion. Are there any seconds on Ms.
A
Simonet?
second.
That's one. So we have Pat Hurd. Are there any other motions?
I'd like to make I'd like to nominate Thule for vice.
Is there a second on that motion? Yes, no?
You don't second a nomination.
You know? You
No,
sure?
if we're just
Okay, it's
nominating.
been nominated that, Mr.
You second a motion, but not a nomination.
Okay. Can I make
So
a
we'll
mistake on, can I make a mistake tonight? Okay, so we have two said names. Are there any other names that would want to be nominated? Are there any other names? May I have a motion to close the names, please?
I'd like to make a motion that we close the nomination with the said names.
Second.
You heard the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So this time we need to have a
Call the vote.
a vote. All those. Wait a minute. Do you want to have a roll call vote, which is best in this situation? So we're gonna go with Pat Hurd first. All in favor? Go ahead, Pat Hurd.
Ms. Benjamin?
No.
Ms. Simonette?
Yes.
Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Ms. Cato?
Pat Hurd. We're going to Pat Hurd right now, and then Mr. Tooley is second.
Sometime today.
We're on Miss.
Kato.
We're on Miss Cato.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Mr. Tulip?
No.
Ms. Hurd?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Dr. Jameson?
Yes.
Chairman Ivey?
No. We do a roll call on Martin Tooley, although I know what the vote is already. For the record. 6-3. Okay. Ms. Hurd will be the vice chair. Correct? Thank you very much.
May I say a word, please?
Sure.
I thank the board for having the confidence in me to vote me as vice chairman. And I would like to say I would like to be more involved in going to some of these meetings that you all have been having. Whether it's in the community, here at City Hall, or what. Only thing I'm saying, I know there have been meetings and the vice chair has not been involved. Thank you.
With that in mind, I'd like to move on to item number 8, redevelopment project updates.
Here's some beeping going off. I hope you Good evening again, board. Just wanted to update you on the activities that we had during the Christmas holidays. I gave you some visuals of the banners that we had that went across the street and on the fences around the city. Just for your information, they should be coming down as of today. We don't want to be in violation of city code, so we asked them to go out today and make sure that they take them down. So that should happen. But I just wanted to give you the visuals that of those particular areas in case you didn't have an opportunity to see them. But we did. The flyers, the banners were posted all over the city. So we did have a good turnout for all the events. We did have a lot of news media coverage, as you can see and I want to get Mr. James
More.
Harper kudos for covering all the events for us from day one. I think I had put all the articles. I think I gave you a visual of all the articles that he had covering Light Up Midtown. This past week he did a final report on Light Up Midtown and did a good job of covering for us. I just want to publicly thank Mr. Harper. He also had us on this radio show on 3 different occasions to make sure that the word was out in the community. So he did a great job in covering the story for us. All the activities that we had for the first time doing this we had good coverage as far as the community. They came out, supported what we were doing. I really liked the parade, enjoyed it, and also the Gospel Fest. Those were my 2 favorite events, and that was because just to see the people side of the road, the elderly people and the kids, see the smiles on their faces as we passed down and rode down the boulevard, and also at the Gospel Fest. You would believe we had little old ladies in walkers that were up, standing up on their walkers, shouting, dancing, having a good time.
That's right.
And that made me really feel good. I think to the NAACP who assisted us with the toy giveaway for the kids. We had a lot of kids that got Christmas toys that might have not received anything for Christmas had it not been for the NAACP partnering with us to make sure these kids had toys. We thank all of the schools that participated, the bands that came out. We had a drum line, and also we had a reggae band. So we had a mixture of different community activities, different community people that participated. And again, I thank the board members that came out, participated, and supported this event. I think everyone that came out really enjoyed it, and been getting a lot of questions about what we're going to do next year. So we really enjoyed it, and look forward to doing other things in the community that's going to bring out the type of people that's going to participate and assist us in doing things in the community. We've gotten a lot more activities as we show that we're willing to work with people. Today, I got an email. We just talked about it last night about youth in our community. I got an email today about a group organization that's will be in town on the 31st of January. They were looking for a location to host the event. It has to do with young men in the community. That was the young lady was at the workshop last night. She was concerned that she had a 13-year-old and didn't have anything for them to do. Looking at this is a conference. It's put on by the state, with the state attorney's office working with this. It's something that they've been doing in other cities, and it would be hosted by Reverend Durham. And his church is going to be the site of this conference. We were trying to do it somewhere in the city, one of our facilities, but they had to have an answer today. And so I spoke with him just before our meeting today, and he's going to host that event at his church on the 31st. It's from 6 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. on the 31st. So we're looking at the activities. We hear what you're saying. We're looking at opportunities that will help us to partner with other organizations to do some of the things that we would like to do. Everyone is short on money, but some of these organizations do have grants. They've been awarded grants, and so we're looking to partner with them that do have the funding and do some things in our area. And we're very supportive of that, and we look forward to doing better things in 2013. And we need your support. And again, I encourage you, pick up the phone, send me an email. If you come up with an idea, if you see something need to be done, please pick up the phone and call me and let me know how we can fit in, how we can probably support some of the activities that's going on in our area. So again, thanks everyone for your support, and I look forward to continue doing things in 2013.
You forgot to mention the airplane.
Oh, the airplane? Yeah, that was, the airplane was one of the things, that's why when we mentioned Mr. Miles' service station, I'm trying to develop a relationship with some of these businesses that if we have a violation, we don't always have to call code enforcement. I can go over and talk to him. He assisted me with, and some of the people that work with him assisted me in getting the airplane in the parade and getting some other participant in the parade. He himself was in the parade. And so I find it's better a lot of times to work with people and build a relationship with them, and you could get a lot more done than hit them across with a hammer. If you feed them with a long handle spoon, like the old folks used to say, a lot of times you could get a lot more out of them than you would if you call the police or you call code enforcement. If I go over there and talk to him, look, Stanley, you need to move this thing out of the way, he'll respond better to me than he would with them. And so I'm taking that approach and trying to work with people and get them to come into code compliance rather than saying, hey, code enforcement, go out and write them up. That's not worked in a lot of cases. They're still in violation. They know how to get around different things, and they know if I talk to them and try to get them to come in compliance, they know I'm riding out every day. They see my vehicle. They know I'm out there. Where code got to do the whole city in different areas, where I'm looking for my area. I'm trying to make sure my area is compliance. So that's why I'm trying to work from a different aspect this year than calling code on them, putting the police on them. If they don't work with me, I have no problem calling code or calling the police department, whoever I need to call to get them to do it. But I like to first try a different angle to work with them.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Charles. Are there any other comments dealing with the redevelopment project updates?
Have they taken the Christmas tree down? Up today. I just don't want us to get in trouble.
I will call them tomorrow. They not get paid past their time, so if they want to let it stay up a little further, we don't have a problem with that. They get paid for how long it's supposed to stay up.
Thank you, Charles. Just one comment on what's going on with the that Light Up Midtown Festival that you created, Charles, and the board worked hard. I know a lot of members on this board worked real hard with Charles, and hats go off to those members that really got out and volunteered and worked hard and made this a success. And whether you know it or not, from the hard work that you guys have done, I've been contacted, and some guys came up last week and talked about the Light Up Midtown Festival, and they want to do more gospel festivals in the park, just from coming up seeing how well that worked out. They'll be meeting with probably Charles and Reed in the next couple of weeks on starting bringing festivals at least once a quarter into that park. They love the park. They love the way it worked. And I'm looking forward to bringing them in, meeting with them. We may do an open meeting, but we'll have enough time to announce it. But that comes from the hard work of what you've done and what this board has done, and hard work from your volunteers. So it's really starting to pay off already. I will let you know that is going on. I was in that meeting on Friday that it took place. With that in mind, are there any public comments at this time? If so, you may come up, state your name for the record, and we'll give you 2 minutes. Yes, citizen comment, public comments.
Greetings and Happy New Year.
Thank you.
My name is Dr. Evelyn Bethune. My address is 884 Winchester Street, Daytona. First of all, I'd like to commend you for one of the best meetings that I've sat in a really long time with Midtown. I'm very, very pleased with the energy and the attitude. Quite professional, and it's greatly appreciated because it hasn't always been that way. So it's really appreciated. I'd also like to comment on the itinerant vending issue. One of the things that you might consider is making an informational brochure that has information about the requirements for vending. Sometimes the assumption is that people know what the code is and what they're supposed to do, and that may not always be the truth. People may not know. And you may also consider making sure that all the churches have that so that they understand what the process is. And you might also make a note of the fact that the permit and licensing department is not the most informative or friendly department to try to get information out of. Having taken many clients through that process, they are not a welcoming group, and that comment has been made many times to the City Commission. So far, nothing has occurred that changed it. So that may be another issue that you want to look at in terms of citizens not really being able to navigate through the minutia when they try to do the right thing. Because many times people have gone in there to get permits and stood at the counter while people talk to each other and not to the person standing at the counter, not give them accurate information. I've even had them schedule inspections at the wrong time with the wrong inspector. And the person spend the day waiting on an inspector who never shows up because he never got the information. And we've had that occur several times. Those complaints have been written up and given to the City Commission. So this is not a new issue. So when you're talking about citizens doing the right thing, we also have to make sure that the departments they have to go to are doing the right thing and are accessible and informative when a citizen attempts to get information and permits to do the right thing, because that is not always the case. And also recognize that with the state of the economy, it's better to have somebody selling a barbecue sandwich than weed on the corner in our community. And many times that is an issue. So the economics is something that we have to consider. We want people to be in compliance, but we also don't want to always be punitive in our approach. With Mr. Bryant, his approach is wonderful because they will listen to him quicker than they'll listen to code enforcement. So thank you for your time.
You're welcome. We're going to move on to board comments. I'm sorry.
Is there a chance that I may say something?
I might let you speak on the board comments. How about that?
It's kind of hard to sit here sometimes. And I'm Bill Shanks, 850 Clyde Morris Boulevard North. A couple things that just came when y'all were talking on the churches. What a church have to have a CO. First, they're going to have to be governed by the number of people per square foot within the building during a service. They're also going to have restroom facilities for that many people during a service. They're going to have an ingress-egress system for that many people. They're going to have fire codes with fire extinguishers or fire hydrants, whatever they want to put inside the building. And also, one thing y'all did serve on that was parking. Those are just logical things that codes should check first. And we should make sure as a board, and I am a removed member of this board, but that these things be looked at every time, not just a church. Any business that opens up in Midtown should have to go meet these requirements. And also, your sales on your church properties is governed by one rule, a law in the city of Daytona, that you can only have one yard sale per year. That is a yard, people. I don't care how big it is or how little it is. Now, if they want to have bake sales, they do it back in the structure of the building and closer to the building and be more officiated with the church. And everybody that does these pop-up sales should be questioned about, be called on to, they have to have a sales tax number to sell, because they should be charged sales tax, because all these you see these garage sales where you have multifamilies. They should, when you get a multifamily thing, they're not in their residence anymore. They should be also hit too. But also have a vendor's license to have. This allows the city to make money and the state to make money, and to keep these people out of the area that we want them to stay out of. But that's just what I want to say. The questions that come up while y'all discussing these things, I'd like to jump up sometimes and wave my hands, but I try to be courteous. One day, Ken may decide he don't want to come anymore, and I'll have a seat up there. But and I want to apologize. I left Nashville this morning about 6 o'clock. I took a shower, but I didn't put any socks on.
Thank you. Ms. Simonette? You have nothing? Oh, okay. Mr. Williams?
I just wanted to comment on some things that were said last night, and we seem to be talking over and over again about getting the public involved, and I think that'll be a huge thing, and get this, as I said before, give this board some teeth, understanding that we are simply we're not an official board in terms of making decisions. We're an advisory board, but we can have teeth. One of the things that I think we may do as individuals, and I think I might have said this before, is become a committee of one. Each one of us commit to bringing 2 people to getting 2 people here in these orange seats. Oftentimes, as individuals, we don't have the ability to influence large numbers of people. There's certain special charisma, people that have special charisma that can do that. But each of us has the ability to influence 2 or 3 people. I know 2 or 3 people that come to see me in a cricket racing contest. And we can make it our business to influence 2 or 3 people in our circles to come. But what happens then is a domino effect. Each one of those 2 or 3 people knows 2 or 3 people that they can influence, and thereby creating a community where the people become concerned, not by beating them over the head, by simply influencing the people, the few people that we have that kind of influence on. And if we can just start thinking in those terms, I think that's one of the things that is necessary in order to move this community. Remember, we keep saying community, 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 community. And that's what we're talking about here, a community. And as this board, we should always remember that that's who we're representing. That's who we're representing, the community, and not just simply our own thoughts and ideas.
Thank you. Dr. Jamison?
I just want to say that I am very thankful that everyone made it through the new year. I'm looking forward to working on this board this coming year. I have enjoyed it thus far, and I think we're going to have a very, very good year.
Thank you. Mr. Tooley?
Yes. First of all, I want to thank everyone for making it into the new year. Thank everyone for what you did last year. Taking into account something that Mr. Williams, it's a lot easier to catch flies with honey than vinegar.
Absolutely.
We need to realize that when we're dealing with different areas, and staff, you've been wonderful, but we've got some staff that don't know how to deal with the public. And when businesses are being steered away from Midtown, by certain people on staffs in other areas other than the redevelopment area, something needs to be done about that because it's not right. I know of a couple of instances when businesses that would have been very advantageous not only to the Midtown area, but especially for the students at Bethune-Cookman College, were steered away from the Midtown area and sent further out. Those kind of things need to be addressed. Another thing is that I want to compliment and mention the book festival that took place at the Midtown Cultural Center. Beautiful, wonderful, the Fresh Book Festival that was held last weekend. Beautifully done, very cultural, very high quality. Things like that we need to highlight. Those things need to be known. That was held in our Midtown Cultural Center. I want to thank Mr. Bryant. I wasn't here for the last meeting in 2012, but y'all, he does a lot of hard work. And I mean some hard work. There's sometimes y'all don't realize he's working other than just in the office. And we need to thank him for the work that he does, because a lot of times we're busy to tell him, well, Charles, can you get this? And Charles, can you get that? And Charles, can you get that? And he always gets it. And that's a lot of stuff we be asking him to do, y'all. But my hat off to him. I want to thank our chairman for the direction that he has taken us. And I believe we're going into continue moving in that direction. Both the chairman and the co-chair, when she ain't talking too much, but the chairman and the co-chair, both are doing a beautiful job, and I want to thank all of you for what you've done, and I look forward to serving you this year. Mr. Gross, we miss you when you're not here. Yeah. We appreciate you also. And Ms. Secretary, keep on keeping on.
Thank you.
I mentioned him.
Ms. Cato.
I have some questions, and they can be answered at our next board meeting. But I thoroughly enjoyed the workshop on yesterday. And prior to it closing, we all know Johnny is going to say what she has to say and how she feels. So my first question would be the comment that was made about the $160,000 that's being taken from our budget to help fix International Speedway Boulevard, which is a county road that can be given to me next week, or one of you all can call me. The next thing is, I know how our year starts, but as a board, are we allowed to have the budget? I mean, I know we asked for one for half a year and we finally got one, but considering things that are being doled out, there's a lot that's going on. Me personally, I feel that we should be advised of that comes out of our budget that goes to other areas that don't generally concern. It's in Midtown, but it's owned by somebody else, but we take funding to help fix the problem. So the one question is $160,000 for ISB, which is a county road. And can we have a copy of our budget? And why don't we get a copy of our budget so we know what we're dealing with? And something that came up in the meeting last night, I don't know what it would take for it to go back to the city commission, but I think it's embarrassing when people can go find cheaper rates outside of our centers to host events, and we have a state-of-the-art building on George Ingram and the Dickerson Center. Now, what I'm going to say about the Dickerson Center, me being the person that I am when I host events and I cater, that's a big place that needs a lot of work. If that's going to serve as a place to host wedding receptions and repasses after funerals and other sport banquets, I would not take somebody there to sign a contract. If I was a greedy person and didn't care, but I care about my name. When we have water rings and old paint and facilities for people to refresh themselves where the doors don't lock, but that's leisure services, that's rental property for outside groups, and the rates are so high. So it's an issue of, yes, it was passed through the commission about raising the rates. Everything goes up, but when the price goes up, the service should go up with it. And if we want the Dickerson Center to be a hub for the things that used to take place there are people who want to rent that center every other weekend or every weekend to give the children something to do. And they're willing to pay the security and have the police there for security. But when they look at all the clauses, by the time they look at, recouping what they've spent, they don't profit anything. But these centers are offered for things of that nature. When it comes to the Midtown Culture Center, so many people have called me wanting to know of places because I cater. And I try to keep it on this side of the river. I'm just going to be honest with you. And I try to keep it in Midtown. My wedding reception, I ended up at Bethune-Cookman. I wanted to go into Midtown. It was not ready. Everything was not in the center. I wouldn't have mind going to the Dickerson Center where my father graduated from, but I didn't want to go in a building looking like that. So it's going to be some give and take. And I think we as a board need to seriously consider that if we're going to be charged these rates, that the services need to be there. And that we need to really look into the Dickerson Center being that hub where everybody centrally located knew, hey, it's at the Dickerson Center, it's going to be nice. Midtown, it's going to be nice. But that building, you're going to pay for what you get. My other comment is we did a lot last year. We're very serious about that master plan. I would love to attend a lot of meetings that Ivy and other people get to attend, but due to my status, sometimes I'm not able. But I commend Reed and Charles on all of that hard effort and, just having a packet hand delivered, considering the gas and outside of his job to the city, the job that he does for us. I just applaud you and Reed, and I watch the body language sometimes, and I can tell when you all have come in and had a good day at work, or there's something bothering you, or we have a client in the audience, and I'm just reading eyes and body language, and I'm like, okay, we're going to be here a while tonight. But I commend you both. And our attorney who jumped up and when he got the land development code, just to make sure, I commend him on the things that he has to be on top of so that he directs us into the right path. When it comes to these buildings, I have two people now that I can look at and kind of understand when they talk about per square foot and this and that. So I've learned a lot in your area. And my last comment is there's a historical building being demolished on Mary McLeod Bethune, and that's Cookman Hall, which was the men's dormitory at Bethune-Cookman. So before they tear that last section of beautiful red bricks, you all go get a few times today, because it was just so touching to see one of the original main buildings. But as time goes, we have to progress with time. And it was just so touching. So run by there tomorrow, because it'll be completely leveled probably by noon tomorrow. So I'm looking forward to us getting the things done that we want done in Midtown. Happy New Year. What was that?
Thank you.
Did y'all out of order?
Mr. Ken.
I would like to see us start getting focused on bringing pieces of the master plan together For instance, I'm looking at the maps that are provided by the folks who are the PMG folks. And if these maps just simply had the same circle that we have on our master plan at our 5 sub retail neighborhood centers, it would be very helpful. Like, here's a map that has hardly anything on it. But so we can just start thinking about what needs to go in there. And we're supposed to become a walking community. So we need to get as much stuff to these other folks so that they understand what our thinking is. That's all. Happy New Year, everybody.
Thank you, Ken. Ms. Hurd.
Just a few comments. I would first like to say it's good to be here in the new year. Mr. Bryan, I will say to you, thanks for everything you have done. And hopefully my little help has been seen and felt there. And I stayed in town all December, making sure that I was with Light Up Midtown. I would like to say something about the park also. Gospel in the park, same as we used to have jazz in the park. I noticed that students, people go out there, and they be out there all of the time, using the stage until 11 o'clock at night, the electricity, everything, and it's free. But when a group get together and say we want to put on a show or something, there is a fee. Why? Can anyone answer that for me? Okay, in other words, I'm saying if it's going to be free until the lights go out, we can do things during that time also and not be charged. Looking at the other park, Joe Harris Park, and the area, we are, as citizens, given the business around there, the club, free parking and everything. But we as little people and the youth want to go and use the other park, and there's a fee. That is just something to look at, okay? When some people on the avenue step out of their front door, they're on city property. And I'm speaking basically of the club. All of that area is city property. We started at one point talking about fencing it in, putting a gate there, and I don't know what happened. My thing is, if I go out and buy a piece of property, I should know the boundaries. And if the city and citizens want to close that area, they should be able to do so. I also like to mention the fact that don't forget to vote next Tuesday, Volusia County School Board District 2. I have a paper that I would like to share with you. Same information that has been in the newspaper over and over again, but I have it on one sheet I will share with you before you leave. And we have plenty of work to do, and as I stated earlier, I would like to become more involved in some of these meetings that some of you all have been attending that I hear about afterwards. So if you would just please call me or inform me, just be there, and we learn by being involved. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you. To the board, I just want to let everybody know that the master plan is working. And I'm going to talk a few minutes about the workshop last night. And I want us to really think about this year when we come in to these different meetings and have our different workshops. PMG last night, and I apologize for being late, going from meeting to meeting and dealing with my daughter on different issues too, but I try to be on time. Every time we do have a meeting or a workshop, we have an agenda. And on that, these agendas, it'll be particular subjects that are to be discussed in these particular workshops. And when we go off tangent or off key or off the subject on different workshops, it only draws the workshops out longer. And it takes us off of focus of what we at the workshops for. Sure, we have questions that need to be answered, but when we got consultants or different people in, and those different questions that you're asking don't pertain to the people, or the people cannot make a difference on the question that you ask, we're only prolonging our workshops. And we need to really look at our information that is being given to us. And when this particular company is out of Deerfield in Miami, it takes them 3 to 5 hours to get here. They do a workshop with us 2 to 4 hours, and then they drive back another 2 to 4 hours. That's over 11 hours out of their day that's costing us, because we string it out on things that is not even pertaining to what is on the agenda. So I'm going to ask that we really pay more attention to what our agenda states when we're dealing with these different workshops, because it's costing us. And the same information that we're asking them for when you come into our meetings, the reason we're having these different workshops is to answer every question that you are having, for we can address them. And I say that because last night it came up about, we asking the guy about jobs in the community. Well, it's not PMG's job to supply jobs. It's PMG's job. What we're asking them to come in and do is to show us what will fit in our community according to our master plan and according to the demographics that we have. So that's the purpose, and it's stated on there. They're getting information from the community. They identified the same map that was in the master plan. They talked about what businesses, and this is why this particular company was chosen. Because they identified what businesses will actually fit in our community and who to go after. And then, of course, like I said, the demographics. And then we'll try to make sure they bring those retail tenants that fit into the demographics and everything from our master plan and what information they are receiving. Now we'll put that into the plan to help us come in line with what the prohibited use list we need to put in place, what we need in our community, what will work and what won't work. And that information doesn't just sit at City Hall. We have developers that's starting to contact the community. I've reached out to investors and different people, and Charles will tell you all the time that I'll call and say, hey, is the master plan still up on the website? And just last week we had 3 different investors call, and I had to call Charles to make sure that it was still up on the website. And it's actually working. And this information that this company is doing for us only helps the master plan, which helps what we're trying to do. And in turn, these developers will come into our area, which will provide the jobs. And from the jobs and the development, we'll start solving some of the issues. So I'm just asking that we stay on point in our workshops and on the information that we're being given. And that's the purpose on why we're doing this study. So I just want us to think about that moving forward. because everything is working. And it's because of you guys volunteering your time and working hard to make sure that we do this and better our community. We got to stay focused. And that's all I'm going to ask, that we stay focused on what issues are at hand, and let's go out and continue to work hard in the community, because it's changing, and it is working. It's new development coming in on the books. I talked to Paul McKittrick. I've shared some things with Reed and with Charles on things that's actually coming in, new development, because of that master plan. So we're going to actually start seeing some things happen in our community this year because of the hard work that has been done by this board the past 3 and 4 years. So when I sit here, I try to take down every note and follow back up with Charles and Reed on what we discussed so we can make sure it's happening, because these experts around us make this thing happen. Your voices are not going to waste, but I'm just going to ask that we focus. That's all I'm going to ask, that we focus and we stay on point in our meetings. And then you'll find that we will continue to move forward and start dealing with some of the issues. And I'm going to ask, too, that we respect one another in the meetings. I was a little embarrassed last night, and I'm going to talk to Ms. Ponder about it. But when a person is chairing a meeting, it is, if I'm not here or Ms. Hurd not here, then somebody's going to step in and chair that meeting. Whether it's Charles, Ms. Simonette, Dr. James, it could be anybody that can come chair a meeting until somebody get there. And we got to make people respect that, because respect gains respect and earns respect. And I had to learn that the hard way too, also, but it's starting to work. So I'm not here to lecture, but things are working. And I really want us to continue to support one another. And if you got a comment, and sometimes we might get heated, but call the person and talk to them directly, because I'm not always this calm. Am I Reed? So, but it'll work. So that's all. I'm not going to be the dead horse to death. Dr. James, I'm going to let you state one more thing, and then we're going to adjourn for the night.
I want to ask that the consultants meeting with the students, if it's scheduled for January, I don't always check my email, to please let me know, other than email. And also, this one thing I would ask of the board members who attend, that we are there to listen at this meeting from the students, and we're just simply there to listen this time and let them, I don't know if I need to say that, but I would like to be there, and the board members are there. We're only there to listen to what the students are saying.
Okay, if it's public notice, then we all can attend, as long as it's public notice. So when they do have, if they have it, I don't know how they're going to set up the workshop, but y'all will let us know. That's PMG.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes.
I don't know much about the upcoming meeting, but I just want you to keep in mind that if it's going to be a meeting of the board, then I don't know. Is it a meeting of the board, Charles?
No, it's not.
No, they're going to do the consultants are meeting with students.
It's okay for them.
Yeah, so it's okay for you to attend, but it's not a real meeting where you can debate and discuss stuff back and forth among each other. So,
Mr.
With that in
Chairman,
mind,
I move adjournment.
meeting is adjourned.